All right. Learn to discover your energy type and how to use it to maximize your sales. Welcome to episode 40 of Talking Business with Ritz. Hello, everyone. This is your digital content creator and process automation specialist, Ritzel Loreto Rectra. We are now streaming on my Facebook profile and on my YouTube channel handle at Ritzel Rectra. Okay, whoever is watching us live right now, comment hashtag live, and whoever is catching us on replay, comment hashtag replay. All right, let's start the show. To be successful in business, we need to find people who have skills and talents that we lack so that we can learn from them and move our business forward. So, in this show, you'll get a small win or takeaway from value bombs that we will be sharing with you once a week. Now, the main purpose of this show is to give back to the community of online entrepreneurs and to get to know the human behind the title before the offer. All right, so let's get started. In today's episode, our special guest will be sharing with us three topics: marketing empowered by design, energy type and its impact on sales launch, profile lines, and impact on marketing content. Okay, she is a certified Akashic Records healer, human designed embodiment guide, marketing strategist, and educator with 10 plus years of professional digital marketing experience and a PhD in business communication. The owner and founder of Fearless Woman Circle. She offers a human design reading and one-on-one coaching. So her goal is to bring healing awareness and strategy to guide you in bringing your inspired vision into reality. Okay, so I've been hearing about human design more and more and how it relates and impacts the way we market ourselves and our business. So this episode is going to be epic. So without much ado, here she is, Miss Michelle Chen. Let me do something, yeah. Yeah.
That's
Okay, let's wait
working
until the
cute.
clapping stops. All right. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Thank you for yeah, for agreeing to be in this episode 40 of Talking Business with Ritz. Let me are we live? Okay. Yeah, we are.
We're live? Okay, perfect.
Yes, we are live. Okay, wait. Right. Okay, let's continue. As mentioned in the beginning of this show, we want our audience to get to know the human behind the title before the offer. So, for the benefit of our audience, we want to know who Michelle Chan really is. Now, first off, where are you located right now?
I am located in the United States, Western New York, actually.
Western New York.
Yes, close to the Canada border, the Canadian border.
Right. Okay, I'm going to ask you a series of random questions. Are you ready?
Ooh. Yes, not too hard though.
No, 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 it's
I'm
not.
kidding.
It's
I'm
not.
kidding. I know. We're just having fun.
Okay, Michelle. All right. All right, Michelle. What is your favorite word and why?
My favorite bird.
Word, yeah.
Okay, interesting. So I like eagles and I like hawks. So reason being, and I think probably well, they're a whole bunch, right? So I like so many. It's really hard for me to choose. So I would say certain days I like the eagle, the essence of like the eagle, the kind of like a bird eye view. I like that a lot. Owls, the snowy owl is something that I find myself drawn to recently because the wisdom of the owl. And so I like to um, yeah, to kind of like think about some of the characteristics of some of these like birds and how they can kind of
Mm-hmm.
help us. So yeah, I'm always happy to see an owl, and I'm always happy when I see an eagle or a hawk flying by because of that. I'm like, okay, they're courageous, bird eye view, like reminds me of like the need to have kind of a bird's eye view when we're looking at the world. And then the owl always reminds me to have wisdom. Like, not
Mm,
everything is like as it seems. Sometimes we need to apply wisdom to some of our lessons or challenges and difficulties that we are facing.
quite true. Okay, very insightful. All right. So, in a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the highest, how weird are you?
Well, question. I think I'm maybe a 7.5, maybe an 8. But it really depends on which community I'm in. So, if I am going, so I like to tell people that there is a version of me that it's still stuck somewhere. So like I'm an immigrant, right? So I grew
Yeah.
up in Singapore. I lived in Singapore. I'm very much kind of influenced by Singapore and its culture. And so there's a version of me that's there still that will be considered like the me today will be considered weird because I don't really fit into a lot of the expectations, or I don't really conform to a lot of the cultural norms in that culture, right? But
Mhm.
in the United States, depending on where I am and the group I'm in, I can be considered weird too. But in my community, I'm like probably not as weird as some of the other people. So I think I'm generally like a 7.5. Because I have so many different facets of interest and also my personality that sometimes it makes it hard for me to fit in. And that's
Right.
okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
because I think it's important to be true to yourself, and it's okay if you don't fit in. We want to stand out so people remember us.
True. That is so true. All right. Let's go to the next question. So we know that you are a soul purpose activator. Quite a mouthful this one is. Okay. An empowerment guide as well as certified Akashic Records healer and human design practitioner. So tell us, what are you getting better at right
What am
now?
I what am I getting better at? You mean in terms of my skills, or I think what I'm getting better at is really bringing all the different elements, right, together. And as you had mentioned, it is quite a mouthful, right? I have so many different like because I am multi passionate, right? I like and it's I
Quite
think it's
true.
perfectly
Yes.
okay. People have been telling me that you need to niche and need to narrow down, and that
Yes.
is sort of an old paradigm, right? That is an old saying, I think. And that forces people to pick something, even if they don't really like associate with it, and then try to force themselves into one specific model to
Hmm.
serve other people. And I realized that model wasn't working for me. And I'm like, I like the marketing strategy. I teach a marketing strategy on a college level. So I'm always constantly learning new things. And so I want to teach that. I love teaching, I love guiding. And so I don't want to kind of isolate that aspect of myself. And then on the other hand, I'm an Akashic Record reader and healer. And that is really because of my own struggles and challenges and going through a period of, I would consider period of kind of like a dark time, right? And then emerging out of it, addressing some of my wounds, some of the generational trauma, and a lot of things, like, and even kind of like the things that I grew up learning that were not good for me. And so the Akashic Record really helped me through the healing process. And so I'm like, that's an important part of me because I saw how that helped me. and how that changed me to become happier, more empowered, and just like a better person. It really pushed me to live like the best expression of myself every day. So that's part of me that I really like. And because that is more spiritual, I started learning more about human design too. So human
Mhm.
design and the Akashic record fits really well together. So there are all these little parts of me that I'm like, well, I really like this, I like that. I don't really want to like isolate myself. And so what I've been doing is just getting better at like how do I put them all together? And
Yeah.
being better at saying it's okay if it doesn't really fit. It is okay if someone else who's a traditional marketer or a branding person looks at my profile and be like, wait a minute, this is kind of like you're doing different things, you're serving different audiences. And I'm like, I'm aware of that. But the interesting thing is there's so many people and there's so many people out there who are just as multifaceted and just as multi-passionate as we are, right? Who have also been told to kind of like niche down. So when I share my story, they gravitate towards me. They're like, oh my God, I know what you feel. I'm like that too. And then I realized that a lot of my clients are people who want both worlds. They are spiritual, they understand, they want to get the human design. They're kind of like some people are really spiritual, others are what I consider spiritually curious. They are not
Mhm.
really spiritual yet, but they're curious. They're like, what is this doing? So they come into my world because they're like, well, I like the strategy part, but I also am curious about this human design. Tell me more. And so then I find out that my clients basically want both. And so that's perfect because I've been doing that more and more in my one-on-one session, in my coaching session. People come to me asking for an Akashic, they want to know more about the Akashic reading or the human design. And then they ask me, how can I use this in my business? And then we're like, perfect. Let's talk strategy. Let's break it down. Let's use your human design chart and translate that into strategy. Let's use some of the things that come through in your Akashic records and let's translate that into strategy. And so that is what I've been doing, and it's been great. It's been fun. You look like you're
Like you're,
thinking, like you have a
yeah,
thought.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking
Go ahead.
because I'm also I'm also at the same um space where I know a lot of stuff. I like I like designing because that is also one of my passion. You know that. And then I'm also a techie person,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And now I want to teach. I had a chance to teach, so I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Embrace it.
It's like my messaging is like kind of like confusing people now.
Mm.
So my question is, aren't you confusing your audience?
Um, I still get clients. I repeat clients. So I'm like, if I'm confusing some people out there, then maybe they're not really. I do think about that. Really honestly, am I confusing people out there? People who don't really know me by being like, well, you're doing this and you're doing that. And so,
Yeah,
like a traditional marketing person. A traditional marketer would say, well, don't confuse, stick to one, right? It has to be a
yeah,
strong
yeah, yeah.
branding. And then
True.
I'm like, I understand that, but this is my business and I get to experiment. And this actually brings me back to like why human design helped me understand myself. Because part of my human design, we can talk a little bit about that later, it's my profile line. Profile line is how I see myself and how other people see me. So my profile line, one of my profile line is a three. Three is an experimenter. People
Mm,
who live life by experiencing things,
yeah.
experimenting things, um,
Yes.
and bumping into things, realizing it doesn't work for them, and then like, okay, back to the drawing board. So some
Yeah.
people are not experimentals and they look and learn from other people and see what works. But for people with a three, this is what they got to do. This is something that feels very natural to them. And I embraced it. So for a long time, I was like, yeah, people were shaming me and telling me, well, how can you say that you are in marketing when you don't follow like a traditional marketer?
Mm,
And then I'm like, when I work in corporate, I am a traditional marketer. I say the same things to people. Pick your message, pick your audience. But when it
yeah.
comes to my business, I'm like, this is an extension of who I am. I don't really want to narrow myself down. So I'm going to experiment. If this works, doesn't work, I'm going to shift gears. And then I am learning that, and then I share that with my audience. So if you look at my social media profile, I tend to be really personal. I like to share my experiences. This is my line 3. I share, and I noticed that what happened was there was a time when I was, being the traditional marketer, writing things like, oh, here are some tips, here are some advice.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
the
giving all of
educational
that.
informative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's what people say, and that
Yes.
yes, that this is what you need to do to build an authority. So I was doing all of that tips and advice, and in a very impersonal way.
Yeah.
Then I realized what works for corporations, a big corporation. It doesn't have a person behind it. That works. But when it comes to an individual solopreneur and you're trying to work with someone else, they need to know who you are. They want to know that you know your things, and that could
Yeah.
be seen in other ways, like um, uh, testimonials. But sometimes I share that in my story. Like I had a client, da 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 da, and I explained some of my solutions. So that way is also a way of saying, hey, I know my stuff, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
when
true.
I share my experience, because I have a 3 line, it actually, what I noticed was that when I shifted my strategy, talk more about me and the things I learned, the mistakes I made and how I overcame them, I had tons more view. And then for the first time, people reaching out to me and saying, hey, what do you offer? Like, what are you selling? What is your price? I want to know more about this. And I was like, this is actually really cool. And that was when, I was experimenting with human design. And then I realized this actually works. And because for me, it actually works. And talking to other people in the community, it also works for them. And so I've had conversations with people who kind of know their human design or are using the human design, and it always ends up that way. They're like, yeah, we follow this model because people tell us to do that. I just share, 3 times every day. I'm burned out. I'm exhausted. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't get any sales. But then
True.
when they shift, some people just don't have that energy, and it's okay. And so when they shift that energy and they're like, you know what? I am a projector. Well, not me, but they were like, they are projectors. They don't have a lot of energy to be on social media 3 times a day, and be live doing all of that. And then they get really burned out. They don't want to do their business anymore. And so
That is so true.
exactly. And then understanding that that's not what they're meant. It's okay that they don't feel like doing it. And then when they go online, they tell their audience, I'm just not feeling like it. Their audience understand them. But when they go online with all their passion and energy, it converts right away. And so these, like if you're a projector, knowing your energy, like doing a launch once, like doing a launch one time, once every month instead of like few times, like some people do launches 5 days. There are
Oh
5 days.
my God. Launching is so tiring.
Yes, exactly. Launching is
I
incredible.
tried it. I tried it twice. It's like, oh my God.
It is
I like to automate all this.
exactly. And so projectors automate. They need that because they don't have the energy to be like, oh my God, I have to like be on like, but
Yeah,
they do
true.
that because their coaches tell them, well, not just their coaches, but everywhere, everyone's telling them, if you're doing a launch, be on camera 5 times, 7 times, do it every day, do it, I'm like, oh my gosh. When I see people doing a launch, I mute them. I'm like, I don't want to see like, I don't want to keep getting your emails. And so, but they're taught that this is what to do, this is what they should
Yeah,
do. And projectors just don't have the energy. And so once they're done with the launch, they're like, I don't even have time for my clients anymore. I don't want to do this anymore.
true, true.
And so then they show up being like tired. The clients feel that. The clients feel, well, I just paid you $1,000 and you're not even committed. What's going on? So
Yeah,
projectors are not meant to do that. And that's okay. They need to automate a lot. So they may show up one time strong and then
yeah,
they're like automating the rest. Or they
yes.
do a recording. I've seen projectors would do like a 3-day launch. They record it and then they're like, hi, they're only here for 15 minutes and say, hey, go check out this video, which they already recorded. And that's how they convert sales too. It's just understanding and managing kind of your energy. For
Yes.
generators, like I'm a generator, many gens as well, launches, they are magnetic when they're live. So if they are, when you're doing a launch, go live. You don't have to do it every day, but you should. Like it's, go live at least once or twice. because generators and many gens have a lot of energy, and they're just because they're so magnetic, they need to connect with their audience. And so that's a good strategy. And so for a long time I didn't go live, and I didn't want, because I'm shy. I'm like, I would prefer to like write things. I'm just kind of shy. But then I realized that when I started doing things like this, going live, talking to people, just even casual conversation, people
Yeah.
come up to me and they're like, I don't know what it is about you, but I want to be your friend. Or they'll be like, I love what you're saying. Can I, what's your offer? And when the first time I did it, I was like, wow, this actually works. Because people want our energy. They want to see who we are. And especially depending on the industry you're in, it's just that a lot of my people are spiritual people. And so they really care about the kind of energy I'm putting out. So it depends on your industry. Some people are not like spiritual and they don't really care about that. So that's a little different. So I'm just talking about if you are a solopreneur and you are a coach or a service provider and your niche are women entrepreneurs or more, or even spiritual business entrepreneurs.
Nice. I can relate a lot with what you're saying because, I just experienced launching. And yeah, the first time I'm so excited, I'm so nervous, I'm so like, then tired after. And then the second one is like, oh no, I don't want to do the first the same thing again the first time I launch. So
Yeah.
recorded.
Yeah, yes, no, that's perfect. Do you know your energy type?
Oh no, I don't know yet. But I know
Yes.
I'm an introvert and I'm an advocate.
Well, yeah, so I mean, I'm an
Well,
introvert
let's
too.
talk about that later.
Oh, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
later. Okay, let's
Yeah.
finish the question and answer. All right.
Okay.
Tell me something that's true that almost nobody agrees with you on.
Oh, how do I pick one? Almost nobody
Just pick
agrees with
one. Just pick
me
one.
all. It's hard because I feel like a lot of people agree with a lot of things I say sometimes. Well, I would say, again, depending on the industry, something that is true that people don't agree on. Well,
Yes.
I don't know if it's true necessarily, but because sometimes if everybody disagree, I mean, it depends, right? I think in certain areas, like I tend to break the norm. I don't try to. I'm just kind of a little different. With back to your weird question, right? I'm really all about trying to be authentic, trying to lead with your uniqueness. And I feel like in this world, I get a lot of pushback. I want to say this. So I am fortunate now to create a community and to find people who are supportive of me. So I'm in a space where not a lot of people openly disagree with me anymore. But previously, before I found the supportive space, because having people who support you is very important than having people who don't. Choose your friends wisely, choose your collaborators wisely. That's what I want to surround myself with positive people. But for a long time, that wasn't the case. And so I tend to break the norm and push back on a lot of things that people say is the truth because it's a culture or tradition. And I'm always saying that no, just because it works for somebody doesn't mean it'll work for you. And so a great example, I think, is the whole example of like there are certain steps and certain rules of what good marketing is. You find an audience, you find your unique, selling proposition, and then you like nail down, you drill down who is your audience, what did you really focus. It's a very kind of B2B corporate, big corporate kind of strategy. And I know this because I worked for big corporate for a long time. And I still do contract work for them. So I understand that, but and people teach that here in the coaching industry, in the spiritual community. People learn from that. Their marketing gurus say the same thing. It's not wrong. It's just it may not work for you. And so
Mm.
I always push back on that. I'm always telling people, that what is really like your uniqueness. And people don't know that, which is fine. And then so we kind of drill down and we kind of talk a little bit. If you could do something, like a business right now, or create an offer right now, what is it? And then sometimes they tell you the answer is very different from what they're offering. And so then I ask them then why. They're like, well, I'm afraid because I'm doing very well in this business and I want to pivot. So a lot of my clients come to me at the point in their life when they're pivoting. They've done something for a long time. They don't want to do this anymore. It doesn't align with who they are, but they're afraid. And some of them are like, this is not really who I am, but I taught that this is how to make business. And then they feel
Mhm.
kind of like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm in my 50s. I want to be true and honest with myself.
Yeah,
And then,
true.
but a
Yes.
lot of times it's not the strategy. It's not the strategy behind, because a lot of them have the strategy. And I always tell people strategy is actually fairly easy. Strategy is easy to learn and easy to experiment. It's the other things. It's that fear that is, stopping them. It's the kind of guilt. There are all these other things that stop them from kind of like showing up more authentically. So, for instance, when I was hiding a lot because I was very shy to tell people that, hey, I'm kind of weird, right? That I do the strategy part. There's a part of me that's very scientific, and then there's a part of me that's very, what people say, woo woo, right? It's very spiritual. So people kind of weird. And I'm like, well, this is weird. You're confusing me, because people want to pigeonhole you because it helps them understand you better. So they're trying to put you into little boxes. And I'm like, no, 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 don't put me into boxes. I don't define any boxes, and that's okay. And so I always feel that people always trying, if they get trying to get to know me, to put me into boxes. And
Yeah.
somebody would say, well, if you're selling things, that's really important. And I'm like, And so when I sell things, like, so that's why for me now it's putting both together and telling people right up front that this is my story. That is why I merged the two together. And I have multiple different offers. If you notice, some of my offers are for people who purely want the Akashic. Other offers are purely for people who only want the business. All of those business things have a little bit of spiritual stuff. So because I love that. So I used to sell just business strategy by itself. And
Yeah.
I realized I didn't actually get a lot of sales because people kept coming to me for the Akashic, and they keep coming to me for the human design and the Akashic. But then in those questions, they asked me, how can I make my business better? Then I realized people don't really want that. You know, they want me to put that as part of the other offers. So now I have one that is like, if you want to be a talk more business, I have that offer too. And these are usually for my repeat clients who done the other spiritual stuff, and they're like, okay, I am ready now for the strategy.
So
I
it's
am
like
ready.
an upsell.
Yes, exactly. And but they come into my world through the Akashic, through human design first. And then, I noticed that people like that because they go to somebody who's purely part traditional marketing, and then they feel like, oh, they're getting a lot of the shame from them, or they just don't align. They just don't align because they're telling them, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that, this is bad, this is wrong. And they're like, no, 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 but this is not who I am. And then they're being
Yeah.
told, doesn't matter. Do you want to make money or not? And they're like, I don't really want to do that. So I'm seeing that more and more from from entrepreneurs in my
Uh-huh.
area, not other
Uh-huh.
areas. I don't know about other areas. I'm talking about my own area and my community, right? The solo women entrepreneurs, the spiritual business entrepreneurs, they're all wanting to market and do business in an authentic way that supports their mission, because a lot of them have a purpose and a mission. They're here to want to change the world. They want to share something to impact others, to uplift others. And then they're like, I don't really, and some of the strategies they don't like because it feels icky. Maybe they're
Yeah.
like, use fear based. Some fear-based and scarcity-based marketing works. It really does. From a psychological point, it really does work. That's why you see so many companies doing that. Black Friday sales, buy within 5 hours, buy within 4 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours, prices go up. And so they use all this like fear of missing out, fear-based. Like if you don't get it, your life wouldn't improve, your business will fall. Like all of that in their messaging, just kind of like get people scared. And so then they purchase from a place of fear. It taps into sort of kind of like their fear, their anxiety, sometimes even their trauma to get people to buy. And it works, like all these strategy actually works, and the strategy is taught in school because it works, right? But a lot of the more spiritual entrepreneurs or solopreneurs don't want that anymore, because they themselves have been victims of it. They buy and then they're like, oh, I actually don't need this. But the person was
Yeah,
so good
that's
at
a
selling it.
thing.
Yeah. And then they're like, I actually, and so they don't really want that, and they don't want to use that as a way. So
Yes.
and I don't either. So I understand the
I don't
psychology.
either. I want a repeat customer.
Yes, and you are attracting people who are very different. So the people you are attracting who are here because of fear of missing out, or because they are so afraid their company is going to go under, they come with a lot of like, oh my God, you have to save me. If you don't save me, I will like burn you to the ground. Bad reviews, right? The energy that they bring is very different. And they do have that almost like you have to save me kind of mentality. But if you are drawing on people who are more, using hope, using like, hey, there's another way to look at it. Let's look at it from a more empowering way. What really works for you, and when we do that, the people who come into our world are, I would say, more aligned with who I am. And so that it makes me, when I am selling, like when I'm working with them, it makes me feel good. I feel like I'm selling in a way that's kind of authentic. I don't push people. I'm like, you come into my world, I give you time and space. I don't shame people for like, oh, I need some time. And a lot of people do that. I was actually recently shamed for wanting to take a day to think about an expensive purchase. And I don't do any of that stuff, and so like, and so that's the thing, and so when the people who come into my world, I would say, are, I consider more aligned with who I am. I may not get like 20 people right away coming into my space, but I
Yeah.
think that the people who come into my space are quality people. Like my when I mean quality, I mean for me, it aligns with me. So I want to, yeah. So they're not like
Yeah.
quality, but just like for
It's like
me, it
it's
aligns
like
with me.
I want to go to your space.
What do you mean?
I want to go to. I mean, I want to experience your space,
You mean the
not the space that
community
I am now
solo?
here. Yeah, your
Oh,
community.
right. Yes. So it's
Right.
yes, and being in that space. So like I would encourage, like even just from a pure traditional marketing standpoint,
Yeah.
whichever community you are in, hang out there, see kind of like what they're talking about, because every community is different, right? Every space. So if you are going after women coaches who are not spiritual, there are certain keywords that you want to pick up on and you want to use. There are certain things like, so while you're using your human design, it also should understand the language that they're using, right? So in my world, in my community, people care a lot about the energetic match. So my content is always making sure that they know that I know that this is really important. So when I'm talking to them, I use some of the words that they use. That's how we kind of like tell people that, okay, we are part of your community. Whereas if I'm in a different community and I'm in other communities that's purely more, I would say, don't are not really that spiritual, and then I
Yeah.
don't use those words. Sometimes I will, just to tell people like, because I'm actually really surprised that there are a lot of people, even in those big communities, who are more very traditional marketing focused. A lot of them are actually very spiritual or spiritually curious. Especially when I start sharing my experiences, the difficulties I went through, and then how I overcame them. A lot of those people are like, "Oh yeah, yeah," they hear it and they're like, "Well, I want to learn," or "What is that you're talking about? What is Reiki? What is the Akashic records? How can that help me?" And then I'm kind of surprised that they're like, you know, that they come to me, even though I wouldn't consider them to be spiritual, and they don't identify as being spiritual. But
They're just curious.
yes,
They're curious to know.
yes,
Yeah.
but I'm using my three line. I'm sharing my experience, and so when I'm doing that, they see themselves in my experience and they connect with me. So that's why I'm encouraging people to be like, yeah, what are some of the things that you are really passionate about, and then how can you put them together. And again, my 3 line is an person who experiments that works for me. If you have a different profile line, it might be totally different.
All right, let's talk about your tree line a little bit later. I want to, we want to
Yeah. No. I am
expand
like,
on that one. I'm getting so interested about that. Speaking of your tree line, what is this tree line are you talking about? Anyway, anyway, okay. Last question. Okay, between money or time, which one will you choose first?
ooh, between money or time.
Yeah,
The answer is it depends. So I'm gonna say this.
you are really breaking the norm.
Well, yeah, because everything depends, right? There is no like, black and I don't think in black and white. I think in like gray. I think everything is situational. What might work in one context doesn't work in the other. So like that's how, yeah, I do that. So the reason why I say it depends is because I as a generator, that's my energy type. I have a lot of energy, and I know that I need to put energy out. So I am usually involved in a lot of things. And I think money isn't the most important thing, but so let me say this. Money is important for to meet all your needs. We all need that. And there's a point where you feel comfortable. After that, money isn't that important. But sometimes, before you meet that need or that goal, right? Money is important. And you're trying to be like, you have a goal. Maybe you're trying to pay your rent. Maybe you're trying to pay your electric bills. That money is important. So obviously you want to do that. So the same thing for me. I have goals and I want to try to reach those goals. And then I would choose the money sometimes, but depending on the client, so I weigh that. I'm like, well, if I enjoy working with that person and I enjoy doing it, then I would choose the enjoyment. May not be necessarily money or time, but that I enjoy and I want to continue enjoying. So having an additional money, it's a bonus for me.
yeah, yeah.
So in that case, I say I would choose money, but really what I'm choosing is enjoyment, not so much the money, but then I'm sacrificing time. Does that make sense? Then there are other times when I don't like that person, or we're just not a good energetic match, or they're abusive or whatever, and they're giving me $10,000 to do something that's a short time. I would probably be like, I don't want that because that's an emotional distress on me, and I would rather use that time to do something else. So there are times when I would say time is more important, and there are other times when I would choose money, but really not the money per se, but the enjoyment of like working with that person. And then there are other times I do just choose purely for money because I need to make a certain there's certain things you need. You need to pay your rent, you need to pay your mortgage, you need to pay all of that, right? So it really depends on the situation. I am fortunate now where I feel I can choose to be like, I don't really want, because I have had people where I personally say, for the money and the time, it's better use of my time. So no, and so, but then other times I'm like, the money is really little, but I really like working with that person. So, okay.
Yes.
And I have done that. I've given like, I provide like a sliding scale to my services. So there's some people I know who are unemployed, right? Or who have disability, and they still want to work with me and I enjoy working with them. And then my prices are very different, like a special price, because they value my time, they respect me, and we have fun working together. So for that, I'm like, that means more to me than saying somebody else, so then it really depends.
That's a safe answer.
That's yeah. So like I feel like that's if people are driven by one or the other, it's kind of important to kind of think about that, like why, to
Yes.
understand, like especially if like some people just want money all the time. It's not wrong, but then they may neglect certain things in their life, or burn out. Then the question is,
Yes.
what is motivating you? What is that? Because sometimes when you drill down and kind of like going down, like what is motivating you? Why is that? Is there a fear? Where did you learn that fear from? Did you see your parents, your grandparents doing stuff like that? A lot of times when they drill down and they talk to you, you realize that it's something they learned because their grandparents did that, because their parents did that, because
Yeah.
something happened in their life that caused them to be like, I have to keep working, 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 working. But it's even if they don't need it. And so that's the kind of like drilling down. And the same thing with time. Some people are so protective of their time and then they realize that, oh, it's hurting my business. And then we ask them the same questions, like we drill down. Why? And then they sometimes say, well, I'm afraid that if I don't spend enough time with my family, this would happen. And then we're like, where did that come from? And then they tell you a lot of times back in their childhood, because this happened to my family when I saw my parents do that. I don't want to repeat it. A lot of those are driving business decisions.
Yeah.
They may not be conscious of. Say it.
That is so true. So I interviewed a lot actually, guests who chooses time over money or money over time because of probably it's because of the question. You have to choose one or the other. So anywho, so you're the first one who choose depends.
It depends because it really is. When people ask me, like this or that, I'm always, well, it really depends on the situation.
Yeah, true, true.
Like, yeah.
All right. All right. So we're getting closer to our main topic. So Michelle was one of my first guests in this live expert interview show. So she was in episode 6 where we talked about the topic in the I think it was content marketing space, which is the title would be how to create authentic content and messaging to attract your ideal client. So at that time, we've introduced Michelle as an intuitive marketing strategist and business communication educator. No, she's now a soul purpose activator, empowerment guide, certified Akashic Records reader, a healer, and human design practitioner. So, Michelle, in the next 5 minutes or less, kindly talk us through how you've started.
Oh, okay. Um, we basically talked about it. Actually,
Summarize.
yeah. So how I started, I would say yes. So I started out because of my background and experience in marketing and content
Target.
production. Um, Doing it for corporates, like I've been doing that for a corporate, being a social media lead, doing content, strategy for corporations, big organization. That was my training. And then I also teach it, right? So for me, it felt like a logical kind of way to enter being my own business person, right? Because I love teaching, I love, I want to empower women. So I'm like, well, this marketing thing makes sense. But as I was doing it, I realized I was denying that really part of me. That's why I changed and added intuitive, because I realized that, I really, for me, what I was noticing is that the strategy, like the space where you're working with corporations and being a business versus when you are solopreneur or even just an entrepreneur with a few assistants is very different. You really are your own brand. You
Yeah.
really need to share your experience to let people know who you are. And so then who you are becomes more important than the strategy. And I say this because there's some people that I've seen like totally throw strategy out the window and still are making a good business. By good business, I mean like, upper 5 figures, 6 figures, things that they're comfortable with, right? And because it really is about who they are. And then that made me think, well, who am I really? Because I have been sort of like hiding myself for such a long time because of my own insecurities, my own self esteem, self worth, confidence. There was a lot of things going on that prevented me from really coming out and like, this is who I am because I was ashamed of who I was. And so when I started like moving more into the spiritual, the Akashic, the human design, understanding my human design kind of gave me almost like a permission slip to be like, this is who you are. You're not weird. I mean, I am, but I reclaim it. I used to be so afraid of being weird. I try to like,
Mhm.
what do the people want? Like, what is this? What's the industry want? And I would try to change myself to be like that. You know, who are the successful models out there? I try to replicate that, but that wasn't who I was because I didn't know who I am, right? And so for me, it was kind of unlearning. So then I started going into human design, learning that, oh my gosh, I am unique, I am beautiful. There's so many things in my life that I can tap on to be who I am. And so over a course of a couple of months, I started stepping more into feeling more comfortable, saying this is who I am, telling people, even getting weird looks from them, and that's okay. And then I said I created the space. I deliberately find people and spaces who will be supportive of me instead of people who will be like, oh, that is weird, which actually meant that I had to change some of the communities I was in. So some of the marketing, because I have a branding and marketing, I had a website that is totally no longer who I am that I took down. And then I had to change all of that. I shut down my Facebook business page because all the people were no longer like, they were not the people that I want to like, that are my audience anymore. So it
Mm.
required a lot of kind of courage to do that. And I did it. And then I finally came out on my Facebook page and I said, okay, this is who I am. I shared my journey, my challenges, and people were like, you know,
Yay.
happy for me. They were like, we're waiting for
There
you.
you go. There
And
you are.
exactly. And that really changed the game for me. That was when I started making money. Prior to that, when I was selling tips, strategy, whatever, hiding behind the kind of like more, it works for some people. But for me, there was an element of like, this really isn't who I am. And
Yeah, that didn't work for me too.
yes, and I talk myself out of sales a lot. I would get people who are interested in me, and I'm like, because there's a part of me who feels very insecure, and they can sense it, and they know it, and they're like, why am I coming to you if you're already like not being like, why am I coming to you for branding consult where you're obviously not even sure about your own brand? So that's the energy I was giving off, energy, vibe, whatever, the thing, like the gut feeling. So
Yeah.
that was exactly it. So that's a maybe I don't even know more than 5 minutes, but that's how I started. And being who I am right now was kind of like a journey to be like to kind of like I've learned some of the things to just embrace myself more because
So
I
would you say you're happier now?
I am definitely happier because it's so much easier to be authentic, to not hide yourself. Like this is who I am and be unapologetically so. Because I used to be really honest, within the non-spiritual community, get a lot of pushback. Even within the spiritual community, got
Yeah.
pushback as well. People in the spiritual community didn't consider me to be like spiritual enough, or they
Yeah.
were pushback. And so I felt like I was neither here nor there because I wasn't honest with myself.
That is so true.
Yeah.
Like for me, the first boot camp, the reason why I say I'm tired is it's not the teaching, the boot camp itself where I teach that got me tired. It's the marketing that got me tired.
Yeah.
You know, because I want people to come in, but I don't want to be salesy. It's so icky. I
Yes.
don't like, hey, you come into my boot camp. Come into my boot camp.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. And so it could just be that for you like not seeing your chart, not knowing your profile line or your energy type,
yeah.
right? Because
Mhm.
it could be for you that the salesy part, right, is not aligning with you. Maybe you think that I have to be this way to get
Yeah.
people in, but it doesn't always necessarily is that way because I've seen a lot of people would just put their content out and they'll be like, just come into my world and they don't care. Like they don't sell, they some people sell based on not really like they're selling, but more like a conversation. So for instance, for me, and then again, because I'm leveraging my three line, which is all about experience. So I share my experience a lot. People naturally come to me. So if I'm doing a launch, I have like, like I set it up where I'm like, you can come 30 minutes, talk to me. I don't actually sell them anything, but I'm telling them my experience. And then they're like, I think this is for me. And so for a while, I did wonder. I'm like, well, am I not making the sale because I'm not telling them buy from me? But then I usually like that makes people feel icky, and I don't want to feel icky. So I hear their problems, I share my experience, and then after the conversation is over, I say, hey, by the way, here's my link. Do whatever you want with it. So sometimes they do buy, sometimes they wait, and then they come back. And so I do drop in once in a while, but it's always from a point of like I'm genuinely interested and connected. And I notice this too. Sometimes the people are very busy. They may want to sign up with you, but they don't, there's so many other different things.
Yeah.
Even sometimes in a launch, just even dropping in and say, hey, what's up? How are you? Or even just showing and sharing posts that's nothing to do with the launch has helped me. Like people are like, oh, I remember you. Oh my gosh. Yes, yes, yes. I forgot. I've had people come back to me, like days later and be like, oh, I meant to buy from you. I just forgot. But I saw your post that had nothing to do with the launch, but it made me remember you. And so then they buy from me.
Mhm.
And so that's how I was like, yeah, this works because I'm not trying to pressure them. Nobody likes that, especially if it's outside their comfort zone, especially if it's like too expensive. So,
Yeah.
and I have also told people this. And when I was, doing like, I was doing a period of like sales launch. Um, I have told when they tell me I don't really have the money for this, but I really want to. And I tell them, I said, well, you have to think about it because, and I always tell them, it doesn't matter if you don't do it now. There's
Hmm.
always it takes time. And I
Right.
think like for a lot of them to see them go, oh, because they are so afraid. They're like, I feel like I really need it, but it's too expensive for me and I'll be stretching. And then I tell them, I said, well, we don't want that. We don't want you to feel like, oh my goodness, do I have to pay the electric bill or sign up for this course? I'm like, no, we don't want that. Like that's not, to me, it's not ethical. So to me, I'm like, I don't want that. So I actually tell them, you can do it next year.
Next time.
It's
Yes.
time. That's okay. And then
Yeah.
like, you almost see that relief in their face where they're like, oh, you're right. I never thought about it. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. And I always say timing, right? It's timing because I'm like, if it's meant to be, we will come back, right? If there's
Yes.
a match, we will. Maybe not now, maybe later. But if it isn't, then it's okay, right? So
Yes.
I keep thinking about it that way because I don't want to be pressured. I have been in a situation where I get shamed, guilt, and I'm like, no, I don't want that. But the funny thing is, and the interesting thing is that some of them do actually, after I said that, were like, no, I want to work with you because like you make me feel like that it's okay. Or they would say, oh, I found, like there's actually a cheaper payment. I didn't know that it was a cheaper payment and now I can afford it. And so like I think that actually if you treat people as real human beings
Yeah.
instead of being like seeing them as a dollar sign,
Yeah.
then it actually makes it you feel better, they feel better, it's good. They're not going to complain, they're not going to be like, oh my goodness, and like I that's my approach. It doesn't work for everybody, but that's just mine. So I think
That
for
is.
you, it could
Mm-hmm.
be that looking at your sales and seeing like what area, pinpointing what area feels salesy to me, and then how can I change it? Because it could be two things. It could be itself, the strategy itself feels icky to you, it's not in alignment, but it could also be maybe the way it doesn't feel natural for you to try to sell and you don't like that.
Yes.
For
It
a long
doesn't
time,
feel natural. I tried it. I
yeah,
tried it. I tried
yeah.
it. So I got a lot of psh, like that
Yeah, and
because
people feel it. It's
yes.
it's it's the same way. It's the same way for me too. I don't
Yeah.
really like pushing people,
Yeah.
and I have taken like sales. People tell me no, you have to make the sale.
Yeah.
But I know other coaches based on what they've shared with me, and based on what they've shared publicly, who are very successful who don't use that approach either. They're more like, let's have a conversation and then let's see if you're a good fit. They start by doing that, no sales, and then after it's over, they're like, here's my link. And then they convert that way. Sometimes people take a while to, you know, make a decision. So it's like also knowing that there are many different strategy and many different types of sales of many different types of people. So I actually have this. I taught. So I guest lecture basically on the different personality and the different sales behavior, because
Mm.
to tell people that many people take different times, different ways to make, like, there are, from here, from being interested to purchasing from you, there are many routes that people can take. And so if
Mhm.
you're trying to maximize your sales, knowing which are the routes and then doing different strategy to make sure you cover all your bases is a good way. And so, yeah, that's something I actually had a guest lecture on in one of the groups, where I show people, like, that's a more psychology perspective,
Yeah.
psychology of your consumers. So I did that in a very different group that's not spiritual. So that's just, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because the way I handle my business, or the way, I mean, what I offer to teach my business in my business is like small solution. Uh, this is the problem. This is the solution. Not this is the problem. There are so many solutions, and I teach it to you. No, just one problem, one solution. That's all. So it's like, for me to spend so much time marketing that, it's like, come on, it's
yeah,
like a waste of time for me.
it is. You said it's a waste of time for you.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this is the problem. What you don't understand with this problem, this is the solution. I'm gonna give it to you.
What
And
is the problem? What is your
hmm?
problem?
You want me to be specific?
Well, we can talk about this later, because one of
All
the
right.
things is, like, if you are teaching, automation, so, well, there are a couple of things that we can talk about this later. That
Yeah,
I
later,
see.
later,
Let's
later.
talk about this later, because,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like starting to think about, like, different strategies, different areas, different, like, problem solving things that we can break it down a little bit, you know.
Right.
Yeah, and so, but again, it's a lot of times when we approach business, or like business marketing, there are two things: the strategy, and then the behind the strategy, which is like the fear, the whatever is driving you to do something over another. And that, a lot of times, you, like, in my experience, is the thing. Because again, strategy, you can experiment with different things, but it's the how are you approaching this? You know, that is what, especially in my world, where people are all about, like, understanding, feeling the energy, who
Yes.
are you, that matters a lot, because they know if you're hiding, they feel it. Like, I can feel it. I can be like, I don't know if I want to work with you, because there's something about you that's not quite authentic. Like, I don't think you can help me. But it's true, because again, there's so many people out there who are all providing the same things. How are you different? What is your personality? And it's okay if you're different. You just want to find the right match. Because there is
Yes.
somebody where you are going to be a good match. You just got to find them.
Yep. Okay, okay. Enough about me. Let's yeah, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about human design, because you've already talked more on that one earlier. So,
Yep, yep.
what is the definition of human design? Been talking
So,
about human design.
yeah.
What is it?
So, human design for me, right, is the technical definition of human design is actually this kind of is a complex, different drawing from a different modality, like the I Ching, the Kabbalah, the chakra system, even like quantum physics, to come out with a unique chart. So a lot of human design draws from astrology. So example, right, is that it's your kind of like your natal chart, which is a birth chart. Calculation is based on the time of birth, based on the place of birth. And then they're looking at the planetary influences at that time of your birth as well. And so it is sort of like that, combining with the I Ching, Kabbalah, the chakra system, because if you look at human design, there are different, like, chakra system as well. And then quantum physics, right? Because of the planetary influence at that time, when the time of your birth. And so for me, I look at human design. So people who know astrology will be like, oh, this is kind of similar to astrology. There's some similarities. And but for me, human design is really an empowerment tool, kind of like a roadmap to understand your life. It almost is kind of like if somebody doesn't know who you are, they look at your
Mm-hmm.
human design, it tells you, who they are. And not just so it almost is like looking into your soul because the human design, so a great way I'll explain this is human design is the lessons, the gifts, your purpose that you have decided to be born into this world, right? So it's sort of like a blueprint of who you are. And a lot of times people look at it and they're like, oh, they want to learn how to kind of like master the human design, or they feel if they're told, like, oh, this is not your design, people get upset. And it limits them, because I remember when I first found out my human design, I'm like, oh, you mean I shouldn't be doing this, but I always thought I was this, because I'm like, well, I always thought I was a leader, you're saying that I'm not, what? And so it's kind of, but that is not the point of human design. So human
Mm-hmm.
design is a empowerment tool. It's almost for me, it is like it's a permission slip to be who you are and the authentic person that you are. A lot of times when I do human design readings, well, number one thing that all my clients say is that I feel so seen. And then they're like, this confirms, some of the things that I've been feeling inside. Or they're like, I knew it. I knew that I'm not crazy. Or I knew it, like the same thing with like the experiment, right? As I said, my profile line, I am somebody who needs to experience. For a long time, my
Mm-hmm.
parents were teaching, trying to stop me from experiment, like trying to stop me because they want me. They're like, why are you doing this? You like, why do you have to learn things the hard way? And they keep telling me that. They're like, you already know that this is the right way, Why do you need to like learn the hard way? And then I'm like, I don't know. I just feel I just got to. And I feel way more satisfied learning the hard way and failing than I am just listening to somebody to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So do you like I like to use the analogy like if there's a flame and your parents tell you do not touch the flame, it's gonna
And
hurt you.
then you touch it. Touch it.
It's a three, yes. And I'm like, and the funny thing is that other people that I've spoken to with a three line were like, yes, that is me. Like people tell me you shouldn't do it. I'm like, I have to do it. I got to now. I got to test it because the three line people are that way. They test things, right? To see does it work? Does it not work? And then the three line people break things down. The nonconformists, they're like, it doesn't work anymore. That's why I always tell you it
Mm-hmm.
depends. Because my life experience has showed me it always depends. It's not black and white. So that is what I'm saying. It gives me permission to be myself all the times I thought there was something wrong with me. Because a lot of times when we are not living in alignment with our human design, often our nature, like this is our natural inclination, want to express it. This is who we are. This is what we naturally want to do. But then we can get shamed for it. So another example that isn't about me is one of the energy type is a manifesting generator. Manifesting generator is part of the generator family, but manifesting generator are multi-passionate. They have crazy amount of energy, just like the generator, but they are very good at multitasking, way better than generators are. They can switch tasks all the time. And the one thing that I hear a lot from manifesting generators when I do their chart is that they tell me they're like, yeah, people tell me I'm all over the place. I have
Yeah.
no focus. And then they're like, it makes me feel really bad. They force me to like, you gotta focus it and finish the task. So that's a generator thing. Generators tend to like to finish tasks before they move on to something else. Manifesting generators don't need to do that. It like gets them bored. They want to switch all the time. And then I tell them, yeah, that's in your chart. It's okay. And then they feel, oh my gosh, they feel a sense of relief. They're like, oh, I don't have to like finish this because they get bored and then they quit halfway. That's one of the things of a multi-gen. And unfortunately, society keeps telling them you got to do this one thing and do it
Yeah.
well. You got to focus. And a lot of times they don't want to do that. They don't like that. And then the worst thing is they feel that there's something wrong with them.
Yes, and they label them ADHD.
Yeah, and so I am not a certified, therapist. I don't know that person actually has ADHD. I have no idea.
Yeah,
But
true.
what I know that it's like the clients that come to me, um, it's not that they don't have like it's not that they can't focus. They can focus. They just are bored really quickly. So then you shift your task. But they are very productive. They are very like manifesting generators are great at what they do, and because you're so fast, they're good at doing different things. They make very good employees. Some of the manifesting generators I know are very successful entrepreneurs, very successful like corporate people because they're just like so good at what they're doing. Switch. They can do multiple things, and so I'm always envious of manifesting generators. But it's knowing that that's okay for them to do it. So that's the other thing, and each energy type comes with kind of like a good a benefit. I wouldn't say a benefit, but like a strength and then a weakness. And so it's kind of
What are those? Yeah, what are those energy type? Yeah,
so there are five
seems
different energy
segue
types.
already.
Yeah, there's the generator and the
Uh-huh.
manifesting generator. Both of them fall under the generator family. They make up the largest proportion of energy types. So I think that's 60 to 70%, I think. And then there's projectors, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's manifestors, and then the last, the smallest group are the reflectors. And so
Reflector.
each energy type is very different. And I can sort of like pinpoint now like who they are just by sometimes talking to them if they're in alignment. If they're in alignment with with who they are, then I can say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay. But so the other group, projectors. So projectors is also another like large group, not as large as the generators, but there are a lot of projectors around. So projectors don't have as much energy as generators. And so for them, they may be labeled sometimes as like being lazy because they need a lot of time to kind of detach, right? They need the time to kind of like be themselves, detach. So again, I want to mention that energy type is only one part of your human design. Other things in your human design also influences. So you may be a projector, but you may have more energy than other projectors because of other things in your chart. That's more complex. We don't have time to go into it because that's like a
Yeah.
itself. But so the other thing with projectors is that they, as I said, they don't really have a lot of like energy, and so they get burned out very fast, very quickly. And the problem with a lot of projectors, or not the problem, the challenge with a lot of projectors is they're living in a generator world, a world that tells them productivity is the most important. You got to work all the time. You got to show up on social media. You got to just like work, right? Show up on social media all the time. It doesn't work for projectors, and projectors don't want to do that. And then just give them the permission to be like, it's okay to be like, they have bursts of energy, and then they have to be like, I gotta relax. I got to chill. Then they go back retreating into themselves. And so it's kind of like understanding that and telling them that's okay. Because one of the things I hear projectors tell me a lot is they feel bad. They're not working hard enough. They feel like there's something wrong with them, that they're lazy because they're not working hard enough. But then I'm telling them that no, you don't have to because that is not your energy. So when you feel that burst of energy, do your life, do your put, write all your content and then be done. So for projectors, batching content, automation is perfect for them. It is great for them. It saves their lives and their business because when they have this burst of energy, they can write 30 days worth of content and then be done with it. And then just like, you know, scheduling it, or if they have a virtual assistant, projectors will work very well with virtual assistants because projectors can outsource. They have this burst of energy, they create whatever they need to create, and then they can give it to their virtual assistants to do all of it for them. And the more they automate, the happier they are. Because if they just, yeah, exactly. So for if you are in that business of like selling automation, selling VA services, look for the projectors. The projectors will love you, because they experience burnout, overwhelmed a lot, And then if you are in this service, also look for the manifestors. So the manifestors are a smaller group, but the manifestors don't really like to do the work. So manifestors are leaders. They are the gut. They're the ones who come out with the original ideas. A lot of times people think of manifestors as great examples are like big, well-known entrepreneurs. Like maybe like I don't know Elon Musk. I don't even know who he is, but they are the leaders. They are the ones who tend to step into power. They're very impactful. They guide people. They lead. They're the ones who come up with the original ideas, and then it motivates people like the generators to pick it up. But the thing about manifestors is that they are very high level people. They have lots of great ideas. They don't necessarily want to do the work. They want to outsource too. So then they get the generators to do the work for them. So if you are in the service of being a VA or in the business of being a VA or like teaching people how to automate, the manifestors don't even want, like, they want you to do the automation for them. They don't even want it. And so for manifestors, it actually works really well with their energy to outsource everything. So they can come to a VA and say, oh, this is my big idea. Okay, execute it. So these are the people. They tend to,
Sure.
yeah. So the manifestors tend to be the one who are like almost like CEO type, the big ideas. I don't do it, but I think. And then the generators come in, lay the foundations. The generators are like, okay, this is your idea. I'm going to transform it. And then they're going to build the foundation because generators are mastery of that. They built the foundation. And then the projectors are the wise people to come and see, is this working? Is this not working? What is not working? Because they're all about that, right? They're all about being that wise. They're very wise. Projectors have a very wise energy. And so they can tell you what is working, what isn't working. And then the smallest group, so reflectors. And the reflector is kind of interesting. I haven't really met a reflector because they're so small. But the reflectors really are, as the word like reflecting, they kind of reflect, and again, the reflectors, because I haven't actually met anybody who's that way, they reflect the environment they're in. So they are like, they can tell you if the environment is toxic or not toxic just because they are, as reflectors, are here almost to tell you like if this is a toxic environment or not a toxic environment just because of their way of reflecting. And again, I haven't really met a reflector, so I don't really, because they're so rare. They're such a rare breed, but they are also one of like, they're very intuitive. The reflectors are extremely intuitive. They're very sensitive. And so if you know if your environment, your workplace is a toxic place or not, the reflectors will tell you. They are the ones that, you like, just by looking at how they're functioning, you can kind of tell. So yeah, so the reflectors are kind of a little different, very special in a good way, in like a very good way. But yeah.
All right. Okay, what's next? Okay. So that's that for the energy type. So we've talked about human design, we've talked about energy type. So as a digital content creator and process automation specialist, I agree that knowing my energy type will surely impact my sales launch. So I guess I have to pay more attention to what my energy type is so I could deliver more value to
Yeah.
my audience in 2023.
Yes. And like just like or knowing your energy type so you can leverage it and you can work with it, and you're
I
again.
wonder what's my energy type.
Yeah. So that's and you can get it for free at like there's so many free websites that you just put in your both time and it's it tells you, it gives you a chart, what your energy type is, what your profile line is. Because when we are looking at like, when people come to me and they're like, hey, I have a business launch, or I have a business, I need to change my business strategy, blah blah blah, or even like writing content. A lot of people come to me, and I love that because I like generating content ideas and generating like copy, right? When people come to me and they're like, well, what should I write? What's my content pillars? What should I do? And then I'm like, let's look at your human design. But we're not just looking at your energy type. We're looking at other things. We're looking at, your chakra system. We're looking at your profile lines because everybody's profile line has a different energy to them. So like for
Mm,
instance, if you have a profile line of a one is the investigator. the authority. So they're the ones who are foundational knowledge. If you have that one line, you want to be sharing everything you know. That's the one, the tips and the strategy, those works really well because you're sharing your knowledge. You are you are very good at what you do because of how much knowledge you have. And for you then to share that knowledge, comes very naturally to you. And then people people like, oh, that's the authority. You know what you're talking about. So for you having that one line, and sharing your knowledge of what you know could be very good to bring people into your world. And I always encourage people, experiment with it, try it, because again, human design and life is all about experimenting, right? It's like experimenting with life, right? Experimenting life. And so try different strategy, change different things, but one of the things that really worked for me as a generator is understanding each energy type has um, a not self theme. And that is sort of like the feeling you get when you're not in alignment. And so for manifestors, anger is their not self theme. So when they know when things are not working well, they get really angry that things are not working well. This is also a cue to be like, hey, wait a minute, are things not in alignment now? For projectors, is being bitter at seeing other people succeed, but they're not succeeding. Why? And so then they know there's something about them that is not in alignment. And so for generators, it's frustration. Like, why is this not working? They're really frustrated. So that's a way that you can kind of tell if you are not in alignment with what you're doing. But each energy type has a strategy. And so that strategy can be very helpful in when you're doing your business, but not just your business, but life. Like deciding, should I do this? Should I not do this? How to use your strategy to help you make decisions, right? And then that is, again, that's only a small part because there are other things, like decision making, that will be another part of your human design. So to look at everything holistically is really important because they all inform one another. So that's why getting a reading or chart reading from somebody who knows that can be really helpful, and then saying oh, this is who I am, this is what's going on, how can I use this then for my business? Then that is why, because if I'm telling you now, these are all just different piecemeals, right? But they're not the
I
whole
guess.
thing. They're
All
not
right. It's not who. All right, we got a live watcher right now, Jeff Bale. Hi. Thank you for watching. Uh, let's show. Maybe. Okay, so we got one profile line that is the investigator. Do we have more?
Yes. So there are, let me see. So there is the first line is your investigator, and then your second line, let me see. I think the second line is a hermit. They're I always have to refer to even my notes because there's so many, right? There's just so many different ones. So the first line is the investigator, the researcher. That's the foundation, right? And then your second line, I think the second line is a hermit. So that's the line where you sort of have to go back, retreat into your safe space to kind of recharge. So that's the second line. The third line is the experimenter. So you're always kind of bumping into things. You learn by experimenting on things. And then let me see. Your fourth line is so your fourth line is the connector, right? I call that the connector because the fourth line is really about leveraging your network. So they're always often seen as somebody who's sort of like a social butterfly, right? They're naturally gifted at fostering a lot of closeness and meaningful relationship. So if you have a fourth line, and a lot of people I know have a fourth line, right? They are really seen as really good at kind of leveraging their network. So people with a fourth line is great if you're trying to sell, to tap into their network. Have the testimonials, have the people in your network sell for you through testimonials. And so people with that fourth line are just really great at using their network and their, people they know to bring in the business. And so the fifth line is usually, fifth line is kind of like the rebel, a person who's all about like revolution. They have very unique outside the box thinking. And they're often the people who kind of like push against the norms, but they also have a very like special way, a unique way of looking at the world. And so, for them, you see them often, they're the ones disrupting the industry. They're doing things really differently. And so, for if you have a fifth line, to really talk about your unique point of view, like what is working in the industry, and then how you see like what you can offer that is a total game changer. So they're the ones who are always kind of like being a rebel. And then there's a sixth line, and the sixth line is the wise role model. So the sixth line is actually a fairly complicated line, because the sixth line has three stages. There's a stage, the first stage, where they are acting more like a three line, where they're kind of experimenting and bumping into things. And then there's a second stage where they kind of like are more reflective, and then they're on the sidelines looking in, watching how the things, like they call it, going up to the roof, where you're sitting up, having a more bird eye view, and then just being outside from the party and just kind of observing. And then the third stage is when they come down from the rooftop or come down from the mountain to share their wisdom, because they have experimented, they know what works and what didn't, they're learning from their mistakes, and then they're observing the world and seeing in a larger macro view what's working and what isn't, culturally, organizationally. And then when they are ready to integrate all their wisdom, then they're here, they show up as almost like this sage, this wise role model to share what they know. So all the different lines have sort of different energy to it, and how
Mm-hmm.
you use it to write your content or your business, it really is like you can actually leverage it to share content.
So can we say that one person can have multi-profile lines?
Yes, so a person has two profile lines. So
Oh.
is where we get into the detail. So a person has two profile lines. The first one is what they are conscious. So this is the one where they see themselves. So that is like really much how they see themselves, right? The second line is how other people see you and how other people perceive you. And so a lot, I would encourage people to, when they're writing content, when they're creating offers, to leverage their second profile line, the one that other people see you, because that's a lot easier. People naturally already see that, sense that about you. And so it feels more authentic to them. So an example is this, right? I'm a 1-3. One line is the investigator line. That is the knowledge foundation. Um, I love learning. I love getting a lot of knowledge. And for a long time, I was sharing that knowledge with people, just that knowledge. And it wasn't really converting. So, because the funny thing is, when people look at me, like even though I see myself like, oh, I'm really like, I'm the knowledgeable person here. I know
Yeah.
everything. This is how I see myself. Other people look at me and they just see me bumping into things, experimenting, and they're like, well, don't really see, like it feels like this is something you want to be. And so that was why I changed my strategy, and then I start talking about my experiences, and then it became easier for people to come into my world. It became easier for people to like respond to me, because I just changed that subtle strategy. So just knowing that, and I experimented with it actually, and I found that it works, which is why I'm like started believing in human design after that, because it works for me.
All right, but how do you know your second profile line? How did you find out?
So when you put in your birthday and your time of birth in your on the website, there's a free website, I think it's called like bodygraph.com. So that free website, when you put that in, it tells you what your number is. It does all the calculation for you. So it shows a number. Everyone has
Mhm.
two numbers, the first one and the second one. First one's conscious, the second one's unconscious. So the second one is like how people perceive you. So that is why, like, and that is usually a hard thing for people because they don't naturally see themselves as that. So another example is somebody with a 5-1. So a 5-1 is like a revolutionary. They're a rebel. They're all about disrupting the industry, tearing things down. And so that person feels like a rebel, right? That person's like, oh, I, da, 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 da. But then they're one line, they're very knowledgeable. And so people actually see them as an actual authority, a teacher, not so much as the industry mover and shaker. And so
Yeah.
this person changed the strategy and instead say, hey, doesn't mean she doesn't talk about her 5 line with the rebel, but she leads with that, and she's like, I am, and that person is authority. She teaches, right? That person teaches
Interesting.
human design. And so because she knows so much about human design, other people know that about them. Like other people see it and like, oh yeah, she's really knowledgeable. And then in her messaging, she talks about, her revolutionary, how the idea is different. But she hooked people in through her first line and then talk about her 5th line. So it's just like learning and kind of experimenting and changing the way you are writing about your messaging.
Right.
Looks like you're thinking.
Yeah, I am. I'm thinking. It's like there's a ding light bulb. Okay, maybe that is the reason why I'm not resonating with others.
Yeah. So it could be the reason why you're not resonating with others. It could be the reason why you're not resonating with yourself. So that's why, like there are different ways to kind of look at it. And like without knowing, your unique situation, it's hard to
Yes.
kind of solutions and strategy that is like unique for you. So yeah, so I always see human design as not a be all and all, right? Human design is a tool. It's an empowerment tool. And I always tell people take what resonates, take what empowers you, whatever that doesn't, like that's okay if you don't really resonate with that. There are other reasons why. But
Mm,
I see that as sort of like when we are coming out with solutions or
yeah,
strategy,
yeah,
why things
true.
doesn't work, this is one tool to help us understand why it doesn't work and then to come up with strategy. It's not the only tool, it's one of them. And so that is just like how I approach it because I have other things in the toolbox, right? Like my training in psychology and consumer behavior, like that is another lens that so I can merge those two and be like, hey, you know, now we know your chart. Here are some strategies that we already have that's out there
Mm,
in the world that we can try to adapt and apply because that's like who I am. I'm all about application. This is the knowledge we have, and then we apply. That's my one line speaking, and so and that's how I see myself, right? Other people may not see me that way. Other people may see,
oh
like
my
I just like
gosh. I'm
experimenting all the time.
excited. I'm excited for 2023. I'm gonna try this one. I'm gonna
Yeah,
know what's my
try
energy
it because you may be that you may
energy
be a
type.
free line. That
Yeah.
you
My
may,
energy type and my profile line.
yeah, that would be fun.
Then I can create my content pillar.
Yes, yes, exactly. And that's what I do in like my readings is when I work one-on-one with the person, I give them an overview. This is your energy so that you can understand. And then let's create content, content pillars related to that. Because when it comes to content pillars, it is way more than your energy type and profile line. We look at your centers, or they call it the chakras, they all play, your throat center, the other things in your chart that can help influence it, which is what makes people very unique. So if you and I have a similar chart, if we have the same, so say for instance, you and I are generators, we have the same
Mm,
energy. We even have, say for instance, you and I have the same profile line, 1-3,
yeah.
right?
Mm,
Our content would still be different because there are other things in our chart that is very unique to you. Every small little things in your chart that influences your content, influences who you are and your branding that's very different, which is why it's all about your uniqueness, right? It's the blueprint of who you are, permission to be authentically you. So that's just
I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, yeah.
I
I
like
think
that.
I think a lot of people like that because they've just been told so many times to, you know, do us to be like this is how a successful person is. There's so many books that tell you like here are the five, tips of productive people, five tips of successful
Yes.
people. Be that. And like why? Like that is their success. It works for them. It doesn't mean it will work for you. And so that's just my issue is because there's so many successful people sharing this is how I became successful. I'm going to teach you how I became successful. It worked for you doesn't mean it'll work for, doesn't mean it'll work for me because I
Yeah.
am a different person. So that is why, yeah, that's my whole journey. That is why I like human design because it
All
gives you
right.
the privilege to be yourself.
Right. I'm gonna. I want to acknowledge another one. Hi, Michael. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here with us. All right. So actually, yeah, this topic is very interesting for me because it is easier to create contents for me. It is easier to create contents for others as a service, but when actually creating contents for my own business, that is where I am getting flustered at times. So sometimes it does not really embody what I want to present myself. You
Yes.
see, I am an introvert and an advocate. So I crave for authenticity and quality in every connection I make. So I say what I mean and I mean what I say, and sometimes I say it mean.
And it also is so when you know your human design, right? It's not just about knowing yourself, it's knowing that how you align with people. So I think that's really important because it gives you the permission to also be like, okay, you and I, we're not gonna click. That's okay. you know and then be okay being, and so a lot of the human design part, so we talk about the strategy part, but there's another
Yeah.
part that I didn't really talk about, and I know we have to wrap up because we're like an hour and 30 minutes in, but the other part of the human design, is the deconditioning part. It is the part where you carry wounds, insecurity, and that part plays in, I believe, also into your content, into your strategy. And so that's another, that's a totally, that's the part where I talk about the healing coming in, the embracing
Mhm.
yourself, shedding the guilt, loving yourself. That's a deconditioning, understanding how you're, like you may realize, I feel like I need to please people a lot. Why?
Yeah.
And so
Why?
that could be in your chart, and that helps explain that or identify, yeah, then how can we shift that? Because awareness, I think, is really important, especially when we're in an area where we're kind of like stuck in a loop of darkness or shadow, right? The awareness is that door that allows you to get out of it. So the awareness is key. So knowing that, but then after we're done with the awareness, how can we make sure, how can we move, shift? How can we shift it out of it? How can you be, every time you feel that that's coming up, have strategies to kind of implement, like, okay, so as not to go into that space. And sometimes it's just as easy as breathing exercises. But anyway, so that's the other part. So when we're looking at a human design, it's not just like trying to find a strategy that aligns with you, but also trying to find, if it doesn't, if there are things that are holding you back, why are they holding you back? So that is the deconditioning part, which a lot of human design practitioner focuses on, which is the healing part, the deconditioning. So when we can talk after this, and we can break it down and be like, well, is it the strategy? Maybe it's a strategy, but maybe
We
not a
have to have
strategy.
a part two. We have to have a
Yes,
part two. This
yes.
is very,
What
very
about
interesting.
the deconditioning? So I do I want to say this too. Human design, even once you understand your chart, when you are doing human like content for other people, even knowing just a little bit about their chart, the basic of their chart, can also help you in creating content for them. So like that is why like when I people come to me and they're like, how can I write content? That is like I look at their chart and be like, okay, these are some of the ways. So I don't write the content for them, but I tell them this is like how you can write the content. So I can maybe I should pass them to you and be like, Ritzel can write the content for you. Here is that. That's the
Sure,
strategy.
sure.
She can
I
come
would
to you.
love that.
But having that and having that awareness,
Mm.
even if it's just basic understanding of human design, can also help you like write better content for them. you know, just a thought.
Yeah. Yes. All right. All right. So again, this is episode 40 of Talking Business with Ritz. Remember to watch the replay either on my profile, on my business page, or on my YouTube channel, handle at Ritzel Rectra. So um pay attention, ladies and gents, as we are now almost at the end of this episode. All right, we now know the concept or overview of what marketing empowered by design is, what is human design. So my takeaway here, it is a roadmap to understand yourself. It is a giving something like giving permission to be yourself. Did I get it right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It's a permission slip to be yourself.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
And yeah, and Michelle had shared about the energy type and the impact on sales launch. So I got generator, which transforms ideas into foundations. Projector, which doesn't have much energy, but they are the onlookers. They see the process, what's working and what's not. Okay, and then we got the manifestors. They are the idea generators. Okay, they come with original ideas, and of course they want to outsource because they don't want to do the deed, but they okay. And then the last one would be the fourth one would be the reflector, which they're very intuitive, and you
They're very
would know,
sensitive.
yeah,
Yeah.
and very
And
sensitive, and they
yeah,
would then you would then know if that how the environment is depending on how they
how they
reflect.
feel and how they,
Yeah.
yeah, because they reflect back to
All
us,
right.
the environment.
So
Yes.
that's the energy type, and also we've discussed uh, about the profile lines and the impact on marketing content. You see this? I have a very big book, notebook. Okay, so what you share here is not a waste. Okay, so profile lines, profile lines. We got the one which is the investigators. They are the authority, which they are the researchers. Okay, profile two are the hermits, so they retreat back and recuperate. Okay,
Oh, but they are naturally very gifted and talented at what they do. And so that is yeah, I didn't add that, so I just want to add that in. They're seen as very like they're innately good at what they do, and people tend to like see them and know that they're really good. But the two lines don't always see themselves as being good. It's
okay.
much more complicated than that, but that's just kind of like a summary and overview.
S- Seems like introvert person, introvert people. Kind of similar. Okay, the third line, profile line would be the experimenter. So the experiment, what works and what not, what is not working. And then the fourth one is the connector, which these are the social butterflies. They leverage on their network. So for me, they seems like to be the affiliate marketers. One of the
They
examples.
could. So they leverage their connection and opportunities is in their network.
All
So
right.
that is what it is. The best way for a person for four line is to ask their network to sell for them or to have their network, share testimonials because that's the power is in their network and the collaboration, business opportunities all in their network. So a healthy network for them is very important. The community. So for four lines, having the community is extremely important.
All right. And then the fifth profile line would be the revel. These are the people who think outside the box.
Yeah,
Okay.
the industry disruptors. They're like very
Okay.
revolutionary. Yeah.
Industry disruptor. Okay.
Yes.
And then the sixth line would be the wise role model. So this is, as you've said, have three stages. The stage one would be they experiment first, what works and what's not working, and then they reflect. That's stage two, right?
Yeah, they
And
reflect
then
and they observe. Yeah. Then they're
they
kind of like
reflect and they
retreat and
observe.
observe. Yeah.
Okay. And then the third stage would be then after the reflection, they then share
Yeah.
what is working
Yes.
to the community. All right.
Yes.
And then my question was earlier was, does a person have multiple profile line? And then you said there
Two
are
profile
two.
links.
There are two. One is how you yourself perceive yourself. I mean, and then the second one is how others perceive you, right? And then you've mentioned that when you do content, to be more authentic and to be more relatable to others, is you do the profile number two.
Yes, to share what is others naturally see you as. So kind of play up to the perception of who you are.
Okay.
Yes.
So did I get the talking points right?
Yeah, so yes, like most of it's human design is like really complicated, and there's like you can have a whole session just on profile lines alone, a whole session just on energy type alone. So we kind of talk about, like the key points. Um,
Yes. And
yes.
then part two, deconditioning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we talk about all the key points. So I do want to say, like for human design, it is not just taking one part, but to look at your whole chart and
Yes.
to see how they play with each other to come up with something that's truly unique for you in your content, in your strategy. Because yeah, that to see human design as a tool for empowerment rather than something that's kind of limiting, or something that you feel like, oh, I cannot transcend my chart or my design. That is not true.
Wow. So I got a lot of new information today, and I hope you've learned a lot too and be inspired in knowing your energy type as well as profile lines to plan your marketing content and sales launch. So for those who came in late, please watch the replay. This is an informative episode. So Michelle, I've mentioned earlier in the introduction about your human design reading and one-on-one coaching. Could you tell us more about it?
So I do like I think you have my website, right? You're sharing their website. So yes, so I offer different ways that you can work with me. But one of the ways that is fairly popular is a human design kind of like chart reading. I don't usually do my human design readings are always more applicable to kind of like business. So if you are interested in anything related to like, I just want to know my content pillar. How can I market to, like, is this my target audience? All of these business questions, my branding, da 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 da. All of that, that is a human design kind of a reading. And so it's that we work together. We've come with a sort of like an overview of your chart, and then using key parts of your chart to kind of write, to create content, to create strategies. And so I like to have a personal touch. So depending on the person and your concern, some people are preparing for a launch. Some people are just like, I just want something general. So it really depends. And then that's one way we can work together. And then after that, some people have decided to, once they know the basic chart, to continue working on like things like deconditioning or other things that's related to the human design. And that's something that I offer too. So I like is kind of working one on one. What do you need at this point? Because again, human design is huge. We cannot cover everything in one session. So sometimes people do book multiple sessions to cover different things.
Nice. All right. How can they reach you aside from this uh, website that you're showing, the link tree?
So my Facebook is a great way to reach me. My Instagram, I'm not really on Instagram a lot, so I think Facebook is the best way to reach me. Yeah, or they can reach out to you and then you can reach out to me back. So I have a coffee chat session too. So for people who are kind of like, I don't really know about human design or I don't really know about the other services. And for me, it's very important. Energetic match is super important. And so a lot of times the people that I serve are people who really want to know that, well, would I be able to like gel with you? That's really important. So I do have like a coffee chat for people who are just like, I just want to know a little bit more to see if we're a good fit. And that's something like if you click on my link tree and you go into my scheduler, I have that too.
All right. So I'm showing the link tree URL at the bottom as a banner. So for those who are interested to connect with Michelle, please do so. Okay, Michelle, do you have any personal message that you want to share with our audience?
Let me think. I think in the spirit of human design and like learning and being yourself, I would encourage people to, well, not encourage, but I think that the industry, at least in my community, are understanding the importance of showing up as your authentic self, right? And I just want to say this, that some of us or many of us were brought up in an environment or in cultures where being our true self, certain parts of our nature that we should be celebrating, we've been told not to. We've been told to hide. So some of us grew up in culture where we feel like it's necessary because of shame or guilt to hide certain
Mm-hmm.
aspects of ourselves. And I want to, that can be hard. And so I want to encourage people to think about this, like seeing this human design as a new chapter, or even just this, to start thinking about how yourself and your uniqueness, your strengths, but also your weaknesses make up part of your story, and that it's so empowering to share. It doesn't hold you back, it just makes you a better person when you're able to kind of transform that. And so I'm just sharing this because I know there are a lot of people who were told that they need to conform and they hide
Yes.
themselves and they don't know who they are, or they feel like something is amiss. But I see that as, it's business is one thing, strategy is one thing, but underneath all of that, you are the human being, the person. And so I really believe that that's why the healing, the deconditioning, and the strategy are so intertwined, because you
Mm,
cannot show up as your true self to be unique, to serve your audience and serve your clients if you yourself don't feel like you are enough.
true. True, true, true.
So that's
Watch
my
out
message.
2023. Yeah, watch out
I
2023.
know. Yay! I'm celebrating you. Yes, I'm celebrating everybody for
Yes.
2023. It's going to be the best year.
Yes. So, so as much as we want to hang out with Michelle, it is time to wrap up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here's my takeaway from this episode. Discover your energy type so you can work more effectively with others in your business. If you know your energy type, you'll be able to make better business decisions and manage your time and energy more effectively. So, knowing your energy type will help you to work with others better, and it will help you to understand yourself better as well. So if you need a more focused coaching on this area, please connect with Michelle Chen. Right? The link is running at the bottom, the banner. HTTPS link tree slash fearless woman circle. All right. Thank you very much for being with us, Michelle, in episode 40 of Talking Business with Ritz. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the Soul Purpose Activator and Empowerment Guide and Akashic Healer and, and Human
Soul
Design
purpose
Practitioner,
activator and business empowerment guide, period. That's all.
Michelle Chan.
Yay!
All right. Okay, stay tuned everyone next week for another episode of Talking Business with Ritz, where we share value bombs to help you get a small win or move your needle for your business even just a little bit. So we will be interviewing experts to share their expertise with us. Just like what we did today, we'll be giving tips and tricks about content creation or social media management, just like what we did today. We'll be sharing and trying out automation tools that can be done by non-techie, which will help you save time and many, many more. Again, make sure to check out Michelle's human design reading and one-on-one coaching, which will help you create a soulful, impactful, and energetically aligned business and career through strategy, mindset realignment, energetic healing, mouthful,
You don't have to
divine
read all of
guidance,
it. You can.
empowerment, and embodiment practices. I have to make sure to check them out. All right, thank you very much for watching. Everyone, see you next time for another episode of Talking Business with Ritz. This is Ritzo, Loreto Rectra, and Michelle Chan. Stay safe and healthy. See you next time.